Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylin Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Artist Podcast. We are so happy you're here. If you're in the studio working away and listening to us, we are honored to be there with you. You got this. Keep going.
Yes.
And I'm Jamie Smith. I'm one of your hosts of this podcast.
And I'm Kaylin Butine. I love that image of all the artists, maybe around the world who are listening. Jamie, you got me all warm and fuzzy right at the top of the episode.
If you're doing errands and wishing you were in the studio, we're still happy to be here with you.
Yes. If you're in your car and your kids are, annoying you in the back, that's okay. We're still here. You're still thriving. You're still a thriving artist. So today we have a really good topic, a really good episode that I'm excited to get into. We're talking about 5 ways to get the most out of your exhibitions.
Yes, I'm really excited about this episode because I basically started my career putting on my own shows, and they sometimes were just a night, sometimes they were a few days. And so I really have thought a lot about how to get the most out of it when you don't have a gallery representation and you're not there for a month-long experience. So how do we get all this effort to live on is really what we thought about when we were writing this.
Well, and I think even if you do have gallery representation, I think as artists, we work so hard for that deadline of it's just about getting to the exhibition. But actually, there's a lot of work that can come after that really is what can lead you into your next step in your career. The magic doesn't stop when you finally get to the show. It's you have to take all that momentum and do something with it, And we've really seen, the power of artists showing their work in our Taking Up Space initiative, which is this amazing program that we have a part of when you're a member of our community, where you get to join together in dozens of other artists who are putting on their own exhibitions, actually around the world. And so we all get to kind of be in this similar timeline and motivate each other to put on our shows, and then to hopefully get a lot out of our shows by doing the work that we can do after. So the Taking Up Space program is just a really special thing, and it all connects to these ideas that we're going to share here.
And we are very proud that we've had probably close to or over 150 art shows over the years of artists all over the world. And we in the network, we have sort of a little course we made about, how to put on your show. But this episode, we really thought about how do we take all that effort and live onward. So our first tip, I'm going to kick us off, how to get your exhibition to get the most out of it, is to have a follow-up system in place. So I often, a great way to do this is a newsletter sign up, having that there. It's like a key detail that I think is easy to forget, or you think, oh, people don't want to do that. And it's well, actually they do. And if they're there at your show, do that. Another thing to do is on Instagram, if you actually put, my show's coming up, if you want all the details, add to the newsletter. And a hot tip from one of our members, April Assure, and I've done it since she told me to do it and it works, is you actually put it in a question form in your stories and people give you their email. So it's send me your email if you want to be added to my list. Because what's really hard for people is they don't want to click on the link to then add themselves, but they're interested. So our follow-up system, and why we say a system is because what are easy ways that you can help people stay connected to you is really, really important. So that's kind of focused on attendees as a practical thing to do. But you also want to make sure that anyone that helped you put it on, so these are key sort of supporters, especially professional in a professional way, like curators or anyone that helped you with this, send them a written note as a feedback and thank you. You can really, it goes a long way because what I realized in all of this is exhibitions are building relationships. So you build relationships with attendees that get to experience your art for the first time. And then you also are going to have building that artist ecosystem around you, and really showing gratitude goes a long way because then a year later that curator is doing a group show, like, well, that artist Kaylin was amazing to work with and I even got a thank you note. Like, all these things make a difference and they help build these relationships. So have a follow-up system that you're excited to continue on after the show and say your thank you.
Yes, this is such an important one, and it almost makes me think this should be its own episode, like how to follow up with people. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do that in the future, but I love this idea of like having the system in place before you even have the show. Like just make some decisions about how you're going to follow up with people, who you need to follow up with, and get those thank you cards ready, like get that newsletter sign up organized, get it out there, get it pulled together with your materials, post on Instagram, like you said, about the show and getting people connected. But I think, this can look many ways for each of us, but just think about how you're going to follow up with people and get some systems in place. Okay, so tip number 2 for how to make the most of your exhibitions. This is like kind of obvious, but also it's just like something that I think a lot of us don't think to invest in. Get professional photos taken of your show. Okay, like we talk a lot about delegating. If this is something that you can just hire out, if you have like the budget or the means, or like maybe you ask your parents for like a little bit of money to how can they support your show? Here, pay for a photographer, right? Just finding somebody who can take the photos for you so you can get that off your to-do list. Also, they're going to give like a different perspective on the work that, as an artist, it's like you're pretty familiar probably with photographing your work, but getting to like see it through the eyes of somebody else, and also having that person at your opening taking photos of people interacting with the work and like seeing kind of the work engaging with an audience. Like, oh, it's so nice to have professional photos like that to be able to show, to be able to put on your website, to be able to put on your Instagram as like reminders about the show and just to see it. So I just think this is so important. And if you can pay for a professional, definitely do it. If you can't, then do it yourself. But like make sure you take time to professionally photograph your exhibition, because that becomes the material that you then can use in the future for getting other shows.
And whether you're paying to have someone do it or you're doing it yourself, both ways, I highly recommend having a shot list. And even if you're photographing it yourself, taking the time to write down the exact photos you want is going to help you so much, because there's nothing worse than the show being taken down and you realize you don't actually have a full shot of the entire show together, or you missed a piece, or you wanted a certain angle. And if you hire a professional, it's so important because they don't know your work. And so I have a like template I use, because it's not, this doesn't change. It's like, I want a picture of the whole show. I want individual pieces that I always I pull up for a show, and I make sure whether I'm doing it myself or if I'm paying someone that these shots are taken care of, because I know that I'm going to need them for all these different places afterwards, like applications, website, all that kind of stuff. Tip number 3. This is one that's really hard for me, and this is share the experience live. So really focusing on video. Why this is hard for me is that I find by the time the exhibition comes, the opening night, I'm tired. I've put so much effort into it, and I kind of just want to be and enjoy. And I feel like my brain's a little fuzzy. So I have to really remind myself this long before that opening night and I'm tired. I have to have a plan. Am I going to do an Instagram live? Am I going to do like a tour of the show? It doesn't have to be live. I can have it afterwards, but this is what I'm going to have to tell people that this happened, to really share this long afterwards. So it's so important, and I think it's easy to not do. I've also asked certain people that I know are just really good at this to do it at the show. And then I've given them my thank you note or bought them a gift certificate. But this content is going to allow it to live on so much longer. Having video of this all happening, maybe if you're doing an artist talk, like having this videoed is so important.
Definitely. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our fourth tip, and that is learn and then move forward. So this is just this idea of like using the feedback and experiences that you're going to gain when you put on this exhibition, kind of having a way to collect that information and let it guide you as you continue to improve, as you continue to put on shows. Actually, I would encourage you to put in a task on your to-do list to take some moments to reflect, have some little reflection questions like, what went well? What would I change about that show? What lessons did I learn? What can I take into the future, right? What would I do differently next time? Just because I just think there's like so much that we learn from these experiences. Sometimes it can feel like a fire hose, but then if we don't like pause, right, and consider it and collect that information and decide that we're going to make some changes, the next time a show comes around, we find ourselves falling back into the same patterns. And so, whether like you just make a note that, you have learned something about your actual work, like, oh, I really could go larger with like this type of series. I thought that would help the audience engage better. Maybe it's, I really want to book a babysitter the night of the exhibition next time. Like it could be like theoretical, conceptual, or it could be very practical. But just making a place for you to learn and then to move forward as you exhibit, as you experience an exhibition, I think will help you just like maximize that experience the next time you have a show.
Definitely. I mean, that's why we encourage our artists to do exhibitions every year and put them on themselves with taking up space, because there's so much learning.
Yes.
And our last tip of the episode of 5 ways to get the most out of your exhibitions is to celebrate your success. So again, knowing what you're going to do in advance is really going to help you. Maybe this is a wrap-up post on Instagram or a newsletter. Like, it doesn't have to be, when we say celebrate, it can be going and taking yourself out for like a coffee or, something for yourself, but it also can be part of this whole loop of wrapping up your exhibition and engaging with other people. It can be content that you're going to share with your community and showing that you are celebrating your hard work and your artistic progress, sharing some of the things you learned. I mean, those are the posts that I get the most engagement with, where even as simple as like Kaylin's example, I need a babysitter. I bet you'd have so many people engage on that post.
Yes.
Or I learned this about my work. People love that. So how are you kind of wrapping this up? You're celebrating, if you're including your audience or not. So I think all of these tips are going to make a huge difference. Even if you pick one for your next show, we've really seen the difference they've made for our artists at TTN.
Yes. I think this was such an important episode because as we kind of started with, it just takes a lot to even get us to the place of exhibiting our work. And then it's like this big push, but we just want to remind you that, the work doesn't end when the show goes up. Really, the way to like maximize your career and to grow, and it's also just like a respect for like all the work that you've put in. I think it's a bit of a downer to say like, but there's more to do. But what we're really reminding you is like, there's so much value in what you've just put together. Make sure you're honoring that, honor the work, by doing this final 5%, like wrapping it up so that you actually like gain the most traction from this amazing work that you've put in. Because we really care about you. We care about the work that you're doing. And, we never want you to feel like you're doing things without a purpose. We want you to like see the benefit and to get the most out of, making your work and showing your work that you can get. So we hope these tips were helpful. And we hope that you are just reminded today that, making your work is so important and sharing it with the world is so important. And we just want to see you do more of that.
We really do.
Yes.
And you can see more of us at thrivetogethernetwork.com. You can join our community. We have a newsletter. And again, we do the Taking Up Space program every year. And there's a whole course and we talk lots about how to do it. And we're here for you. So as always, Kaylin and I are here for you. We're cheering you on and we believe in the work you're doing as thriving artists.